With the Final Four finally upon us, we break down just how interesting the game hopefully is, or if it's not going to be interesting at all, as we have record odds on the teams in the Final Four, which is going to be a big topic for discussion. Also, the MLB weekend, even though it's weekend number two, we are expected a several star-studded matchups early on this season. We will also break down on what are some of the biggest shocks right now and the biggest overreactions that we are seeing in Major League Baseball. And also NFL, the draft is so close to being here that we have to talk about, well, the quarterbacks that are pretty much the place holders in the NFL for these starting teams. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and this is Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another installment of Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. And guys, we've got the Final Four. It is happening right now. We've got women's basketball that's happening in the Final Four as we speak, and then the men's Final Four coming up also. And we just hope that it's going to be as action packed as this entire tournament has been so far. I know there is worry that it may not be just because of how dominant two of the teams are going into it, but sometimes it doesn't matter. I mean, you've got some teams that are on a hot streak that did not belong to be there that are there, but we're going to talk about that more in depth. But first, I'm going to go ahead and introduce both my co-hosts here today. First, we've got David Street,
What's up, y'all?
and we've also got Ed Smith.
Welcome, y'all.
Guys, yeah, like I mentioned, this Final Four, we've got some pretty hefty odds happening right now in favor of two of the teams. And well, the first matchup I want to talk about is UConn and Alabama. And when you hear the Final Four, you're planning to look at odds of being pretty darn close. Not this game. UConn is the minus 800 favorite in this Final Four matchup against the Crimson Tide. And it's just not even close. I mean, 11.5 points is the spread there as well. Do you guys agree with these odds, first and foremost?
I disagree because they should be bigger.
When you're talking about a team that has been up by 30 in every game in this tournament, yeah, the point spread should be bigger.
Yeah, especially against an Alabama team who we've talked about before. Doesn't know how to play that. What's that thing? Defense?
Yeah, and it's really funny because I think after Alabama beat oh god who they play in the Elite Eight
Clemson?
Clemson, yes, after they beat Clemson, I think Nate Oates post game interview said that their defense had gotten better or they're playing defense on. My first thought is, no, the hell you're not. You're just outscoring everybody, but buddy, your defense is still trash.
You played Clemson. Now you're gonna have to play an actual real test in UConn. I mean, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, Clemson did have a nice little run as well,
Mhm.
but they're no UConn. They
Yeah.
really aren't. You're playing the best team in the country right now, and that is why you're looking at a minus 800 favorite with UConn. Ed, I mean, do you see any chance Alabama here is at winning unless they are somehow able to make it just an offensive only game?
The only way Alabama stays in this game is if Marcus Sears can turn this into a 3-point shooting contest. That's about it. Because inside to outside, UConn's a better offensive run team. It's not basically a chuck and go type deal. And Alabama's defense has more holes in it than Swiss cheese.
That is definitely a lot right there. But it's almost like when you look at these odds here, it's almost like it's the first round of March Madness, and you're looking at a 1 seed versus 16 seed. That's all, but even the I mean, those are usually you're usually at, like, minus 1,100 around there, but
Mhm.
this is minus 800 for a Final Four matchup. It just seems so odd to see that, but that's just a testament of not only how good UConn is, but how bad Alabama's defense is, and a lot of people just don't feel that they deserve to be there, but at the end of the day, they do deserve to be there because they won all the games they needed to, and that's how I look at it. March Madness is usually a clean slate, so if you come in and you win these games when it matters most, then that's how it is. Sorry, but Alabama definitely deserves to be there. But the odds, I agree with. I really do, just because of how bad their defense is versus how complete and how great UConn is. They're the defending champs, and they're playing like the defending champs. But I think it's pretty safe to say how we feel on who's going to win this matchup, but I still would like to hear your guys' predictions on UConn versus Alabama.
I got UConn over Alabama by a score of 88-70.
I've got UConn over Alabama by the score of 98-76.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna continue kind of the trend there as well. I've got 92-72, so a 20-point victory. If you guys did not see the last episode, I mentioned how UConn has won their last 10 March Madness games by at least 13 points or more. So expected to be well in the double digits this game as well. That's just how all three of us see it. So I would imagine that trend continues on this game. But this next game, we have probably one of the hottest teams in the nation. Not saying the best, but the hottest team, and that is the NC State Wolfpack versus Purdue. Um, this one not as big as the favorites, but they're still pretty hefty favorites. Purdue being a minus 450 in this game against NC State. This one's a little bit more closer, I think, because how hot NC State's playing. And yes, Purdue is not UConn, but they do got a freak there that tends to get a lot of calls his way. But we previewed this a little bit before on a previous episode of it's going to be like uh, um, Godzilla versus Kong with DJ Burns and Zach Eady. So, how you guys seeing Purdue in this game? Do you think Zach Eady's going to continue to control the game based on not only his talent but refs calls?
I just I cannot, in good conscience, pick against Purdue, especially with the way they've been playing, and of course, the whole redemption arc that they've got going on right now. And yes, obviously, Zach Edey has had dominant results. Um, so yeah, I think I mean NC State could make it an interesting game. And there's a part of me that's I mean, I guess I'm kind of jumping the gun here. But like there is a part of me that thinks NC State is going to push them, like they're going to win. But sometimes you just have to go with the most obvious choice here, and I just cannot pick against Purdue.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing,
No, go ahead, Ed. Actually.
what I'm seeing is if DJ Burns can somewhat neutralize Zach Edey in any kind of way, then it becomes a question of which backcourt is going to run out the ball better. And right now, I'm I'm seeing NC State play with a lot more confidence. So, and with Purdue being a little smaller than NC State's guards, there's some there's some questions to be had there. And you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to go ahead and take the Wolfpack. Give me the Wolfpack as 67-66.
Okay.
If that
Uh, you know, I,
happens, if that happens, they would be the first ever double digit seed in a men's tournament to make the final. So
they're looking to make history, and they are really streaky. And you guys remember when Glenn Big Baby Davis was in the NBA? It's like you saw the hype around that guy. I'm not saying that he was super good, but fans love to watch him. And you're seeing the same result with DJ Burns with the NC State Wolfpack, and they become the fan favorite. I mean, I'm sure if you went and asked random people who weren't really college basketball fans, but have paying attention to the tournament somewhat, they'd tell you they're going NC State all the way because they're just fun to watch with this guy. So much fun that he's got NFL attention. It's kind of funny how that works out.
Yeah, and to your point, David, what part of this NC State run has not defied every law there is in college basketball?
I understand
They
that.
weren't even going to make the tournament
Hmm.
before the ACC tournament took place. They go in the run there, they get in the run now, and let's keep riding the hot hand. You don't bench the hottest player on the team, so let's ride it. Let's ride it all the way.
No, I understand that, but I still stand by what I said. Sometimes the obvious choice is the choice that you need to make.
Yeah.
And I guess with that, we should probably give our predictions. I got Purdue over NC State 74-65.
Ed,
But
I can you say one more time your prediction? I know you had NC State, but
NC
what was the
State
score?
67-66.
Okay. I've got Purdue winning 77-72.
All right.
So it is of note that Purdue is favored by 9.5 points. So I've got them. I've got the under there as far as it being a 5 point win for Purdue. So obviously Ed has NC State winning, so that's regardless there. But I think it's going to be actually a pretty fun matchup. But I'm more interested now on the final. Me and David have the same final here with our predictions, whereas Ed does have NC State versus Purdue. So I'm just going to ask it. Well, I'll ask this question to both, but I'm going to ask it to you first, David. How interesting is it going to be seeing Zach Edey versus UConn in the finals? Because are the refs going to continue to give Zach Edey those calls in the final? Or is UConn going to, being the defending champs and all, kind of benefit from not getting those calls that should not be getting called in general?
Well, like it is interesting, right? Like what's going to get you better ratings? Having a team go back to back for the first time in well over a decade, or having a team complete its redemption arc, a la Virginia 2.0. So I don't know where the refs are going to lean as far as that goes. Um, but either way, it's going to be fun to watch. I think Zach Edey himself individually will have a great game, but I think UConn will be able to figure everybody else out.
Whereas with you, Ed, you've got UConn versus NC State. Um, is besides having DJ Burns, is NC State going to be able to do anything as far as momentum to even come close to UConn's offensive attack?
Absolutely not. This is the point where you pick the obvious choice.
Yeah.
UConn is definitely going to beat NC State in the final, and there's really no bones about it on that one.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think me and David would agree if it was UConn versus NC State, we'd have UConn as well. But for you, Ed, if it's UConn versus Purdue, still seeing the same results.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
I think all three of us are in agreement here that UConn
Hmm.
has the edge to pretty much win any matchup the rest of the way, no matter who they play. I do want to say of note that last night, I know a lot of people don't watch it much, but Seton Hall won the NIT tournament by beating Indiana State, who, similar to NC State, was a fan favorite in that tournament. And I know a lot more people tuned in just because of that, but it is not as big as this tournament is that we have with March Madness. So just wanted to note that there. So UConn. Seems to be the consensus pick, not only with us, but everyone else, as being the first back to back champ since, yes, David Street's 06-07 Florida Gators.
I've got no faith in Alabama to help us continue our streak, and and obviously I don't think NC State is going to beat Purdue. So yes, I am going to be rooting for Purdue against UConn.
Yeah. Yep, I
if
I
that
get it.
happens.
I
So
get it. I get it, yeah.
yeah,
Um, but on to the next topic. MLB has officially been, about a little over a week now. We are in the second weekend of the season, and we've got a couple of big series actually happening. Interdivision rivals, and the first one we want to talk about is the Astros at the Rangers, and think it's only fitting that I have Ed talk about this because it is his Astros. He is our local our Texas resident. So Ed, how are you seeing
decadent.
this series? Yeah, yeah. Sorry, a little
Hey,
put both words together before I finish them.
I'll take it. Uh, well, the question going into this week is, can the Astros win a game in which they allow a run? Because they haven't yet so far this year, which leads to question: Will the real Houston Astros please stand up? Because so far this first week and a half, it has been just doldrum watching this team, almost squander the offensive firepower that they have by not getting it on the back end. The bullpen, for some reason, has not held on to leads, and I want to hope that they get everything back in line. But when you're talking about a bullpen that had changed completely because of the offseason signings, uh, you're taking a closer that closed out multiple World Series games and making him the eighth inning pitcher, uh, that takes some getting used to. So I don't want to overreact on that part, but I want to see some progress and have us win a game in which we've given up a run. Because yes, we had the no hitter the other night. That's that was a great pitch game. But guess what? There were no runs scored, and we win.
and
You
no
know,
bullpen.
and no bullpen.
Hmm.
And then on Thursday night, no, Wednesday night against the Blue Jays, we had no runs scored and we win. But every other game we've allowed a run, we've lost. And that leads to a 2-5 record so far, giving up, uh, but we have a positive run differential of 7. So that gets a little wonky in there. Now, the Rangers, they hit the ground running. There's no doubting that portion of it. And now that they've got their gigantor rings that, if you looked at the inscription of it, actually have the insignias of the teams that they beat on the road built into the ring itself. That was a fun little detail I caught on that. Um, you know, the Astros, they need this series as a whole. They need to get back on track because they don't want to fall more than 2.5 games behind this early and be looking up at the Rangers and eventually the Mariners. I don't expect the Angels to stay at the top of the division like they were coming into Friday, but that's that we need some positive momentum, a streak, a couple of games put together that make us look forward to the next month and see where we go from there.
Yeah, let me make a case here. You ask, will the real Houston Astros stand up? Will they show up? Well, Ed, I would tell you these are the real Houston Astros. You know why? Because we see this from Houston every single year. Okay, they get off to a slow start. And then they start to pile up some wins, and then they go on an 11-game winning streak, and they build up a comfortable lead in a division, or they comfortably make the playoffs. Okay, it's rinse and repeat with these guys. Slow start, pick up some wins, 11-game winning streak, make the playoffs, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Well, it took the last game of the season last year to win the division. You know, so there's that too.
Yeah, Ed, I have a question for you. Not only because you're an Astros fan, but also as a baseball fan. With the recent news that came out of Alex Bregman, most likely going to be a free agent at the end of the year because him and the Astros can't work anything out. Would you rather that distraction happen like it is now, or something later on in the year? Because we do have 162 games to play in the regular season. So, as a fan and as a baseball fan, what do you make of that news being talked about now versus the end of the year?
I feel like both sides need to set a date within the season where they need to get something done and then put it away until the end of the year. If they don't get it done by, say, Memorial Day,
Hmm.
then at that point say, you know what, the rest of the year we're just going to play, and then we'll pick up talks again once the season's over. Because if if it's done that way, it takes the distraction out of it, and they can only focus on the games rather than what is Bregman doing when he's not on the field. You know, what kind of conversations is he having behind closed doors? Those type of things. That is where I see a lot of clubs get kind of caught in the weeds of the news surrounding the team rather than paying attention to the game on the field.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just you don't want these distractions regardless whether it's the first game of the year, All-Star break, or the last game of the year, because it could cause such issues there. I mean, Bregman's played his entire career with the Astros, and he's created such a bond with the likes of Altuve and Alvarez, all these guys that have been there for a while. And to have that distraction really does take things away from the game itself. And so that's why I, wondered, is, you know, having it this early on, is it a good thing or a bad thing? But I think they just need to set a date, like you said, and just kind of keep the formalities to it, in how it should be, because if not, it's just going to drag on and it's going to cause issues later on in the year.
So Alex Bregman is in the final year of his contract.
Yeah, they
Okay.
made a priority to sign Altuve. They've got Jordan Alvarez under contract. Kyle Tucker's under contract. They got Framber Valdez under contract. There's a lot of these up and coming, like Pena at short. They've got him under contract. There's they have prioritized and made do made do on the bet of the homegrown talent.
Hmm.
Then Bregman's just the next one on the list to try and sign long term. They're still not the most expensive roster in MLB, but when you talk about signing Bregman to his next contract, they may get up there.
Absolutely. I mean, a franchise like them wants to keep Bregman, Altuve for their whole careers, rightfully so, because they help create such a franchise with that team. Uh, going into the postseasons that they've done, the World Series they've won, they've been the center of it. So that you want to keep that.
And for the record, that's how the Yankees first got into that whole we're gonna outpay the best talent. They brought in a whole bunch of talent through that organization
Mhm.
during the Jeter times
Oh yeah,
and really overpaid for them to stay in New York. So that's where that portion came in, and that's when they were winning World Series.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
they have a long history of not making it to winning the World Series since then, and that's because they're trying to buy talent and keep that payroll high. It isn't because they're developing it within their own system.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, because most of you had Mariano Rivera, Derek Jeter, they all came up in the system. Yes, I know you could say, well, they got A Rod. Yes, you're absolutely right. But every
That was
team
after.
still, yes, exactly. And they still won, yes, with A Rod early. But then after that, no, that's when they started then trying to bring over so many people to then pay them. And that's when it kind of went downhill for them. So yeah, but another big series happening this week. And speaking of the Yankees, the Blue Jays are facing off against the Yankees, and the Blue Jays are already 3 games behind. The Yankees are playing some of their best baseball that we've seen in some time. Yes, I know it's early; it's only been about a week, but you also don't want to get buried that early too, because it is harder to try to play catch up as the season goes on and on and on, and you're still behind. You kind of want to keep up with the time. So Blue Jays, expect them to try to come into New York and really win this series because they need to. But guys, are the Yankees, are they finally playing some of their best baseball, even though they don't have, Cole, he's injured, but they still have some of their top guys there.
I mean, they're certainly playing good now, but I don't think they're going to sustain their. I think they'll have a decent season, but I think when it's all said and done, I think the Orioles are going to run away with the AL East. They are by far the best team in that division, in my opinion.
And they could stay healthy. I feel like the Yankees, they keep trying to pile on the disabled list roster with their whole team, and that's what we see. Aaron Judge is an incredible talent, but guess what? He'll be injured at some point this year. Stanton, same thing. Juan Soto tends to do pretty decent, but he's on the Yankees now, so he'll get hurt. It's just kind of how it is with that team, and that's exactly what will eventually probably happen to them. The Blue Jays, on the other hand, they've got George Springer, Ed knows, ex Astro. They did lose Matt Chapman to my Giants, but it's the Blue Jays still have a pretty decent team, but I feel like they're another organization that just struggles to win now.
Well, it is a AL East, so there's there's that part of it.
Yeah.
There's you've got Yankees, you've got the Red Sox that have overpaid for a roster that is turning over at this point. It's going to be a couple more years before they can be competitive again. The Blue Jays have always been kind of that middle team. The Tampa Bay Rays, David, you can wax poetic about this for a very long time, but they really play above their lot in life, and like you said, Matthew, the Orioles, and David, you both said it. The Orioles are going to run away with this division this year, but the idea that the Blue Jays are going to be ultra competitive in this division, that's a dream for the people in Canada.
But it is like, but like this is the Blue Jays we're talking about, and it does seem like every year, especially as we get closer to the end, the Blue Jays always do put up a fight. I mean, didn't they miss the playoffs last year by just one game? They missed it on the final day of the season, or close to that.
Yeah, it came right down to it.
Yeah. So like they've got talented players. They have a decent roster. So
Well, they don't have Joe Carter. That's what they're missing.
right. Yeah.
And the balanced schedule actually helps them versus the unbalanced scheduling that there was a few years ago before the recent change in what the scheduling dynamics were.
Yeah, absolutely. But I going into this weekend, though, it possibly could be a toss up, but the Yankees have been looking pretty decent. Same with having the addition of Juan Soto. So, would I be surprised if the Yankees take this series? No, but the Blue Jays definitely need to come in with some more intensity. Just already being down 3 games so far or in this early season. But before we end our MLB topic, I want to talk about our overreactions. Even though it's been 1 week, what is something that may seem like an overreaction, but pretty valid point so far? I'll go ahead and start with mine. We've already been pretty much chiming in on it, but that is the hype is real behind the Baltimore Orioles. They have started out this year 5-2 already. They are looking to really continue the success they had last year, winning that division. They just continue to look like they belong, and we haven't seen the Orioles be this competitive in a while. But guys, I want to take this an even step further. 2016, the Chicago Cubs won the World Series. They ended the long streak thanks to Marty McFly and Back to the Future, but they were regarded as having one of the best talent from the farm system win that World Series with the likes of Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Kyle Schwarber. But guys, the Baltimore Orioles are going to surpass that. in my opinion. If you look at what their AAA minor league team did this last week, they put up 26 runs in one game. And their three main studs from their farm system, listen to these video game numbers that I'm going to say all in one game. Heston Kjerstad went 5 for 7 with 2 home runs and 10 RBIs in one game. Kyle Stowers had 3 home runs and 7 RBIs, and then, of course, Jackson Holliday, who we know all the hype there, had 4 hits as well that game. It was just video game numbers, and I know you're gonna say, "Well, that's AAA," but trust me, guys, these guys know how to play ball, and when they come up eventually to Baltimore, this team is which is already looking pretty scary, is going to look even scarier. I think they actually made a really smart move by not having Jackson Holiday on the opening day roster. It's just more of a humbling experience, in my opinion, but Jackson Holiday will be there soon, and being there with Adley Rutschman, it's going to be so fun in Baltimore to see this team play. And if you haven't watched them already, you need to, because the hype is real and this team is going to go far and they're going to be there for a while.
Wasn't Jackson Holiday the first overall pick straight out of high school?
Yeah, he's that good.
Yeah.
Like he's that's the thing with baseball that people don't realize. They always think of from the NBA drafts, the NFL drafts that, oh, they got drafted, they're going to be on, the roster immediately. Baseball's not like that. Another stat that I learned several years ago, I'm sure it's changed because times do change, but was, what is the average time spent in the major league for a major league baseball player in the majors? And you ask that question, I'll ask you guys that if you want to answer. But how many years on average does a player play in the MLB?
Like, on average, how many years does a player play in MLB?
Yeah.
Uh, I'm gonna s- I'm going to say, hold up, let me think. So I'm gonna say 14.
Okay. Ed?
3.
Ed was pretty close. 1 year. The
Wait,
reason,
did I misunderstand the question?
yes and no. It's kind of a loaded trick question. So it's, what is it? Yeah. What is the average year any baseball player will play on a major league baseball team? And the reason it's only one season, 1 year, is because you have to weigh in all the players in the minor leagues that never played. You got to count them as zero, because
Oh, okay.
that's how it is in baseball. Is just because you got drafted does not mean you will play a single game in the Major League Baseball. So the rarity that Jackson Holiday being the number one pick last year out of high school and was possibly going to make the opening day roster just tells you how talented he is.
Wow.
So it's baseball is not easy. It is very hard to make it to the majors because the draft and the minor league system is so big that you may never ever make it. So that's, you should look at that as these players that are in the MLB are legit. And David, I have a feeling you have an overreaction of a player that's doing pretty darn good in his major league career.
Yes. So far, right now, Mookie Betts of the Los Angeles Dodgers is the best player in baseball, and frankly, no one else is even close to him. Let me read you some numbers here, okay? So as of right now, Mookie Betts is first in runs, hits. He's tied with Will Smith. No, not that Will Smith. Home runs, total bases, walks, on base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS, and WAR. And he's also fourth in batting average at 447, right? Now, first of all, obviously, Betts is not going to maintain a 400 batting average. I can't remember the last time a player actually, did that. But as far as like these rankings go, I absolutely think that Betts can, sustain most of these rankings here, because this is Mookie Betts we're talking about. He's one of the best players in baseball. The guy has won an MVP before, right? He's constantly one of the best players, certainly one of the best offensive players in baseball every single year. And to this day, why the Red Sox gave him away for a pack of oatmeal cream pies, I will never understand why. But yeah, that is my overreaction. Mookie Betts is the best player in baseball right now, and keep in mind, it's not like we're talking about a guy like Jonathan India, who I love Jonathan India, him being a Florida Gator and all, right? But if it was him who was producing these numbers, then you might think, okay, well, you're obviously not going to sustain that because we know what kind of career you've had so far. But with Mookie Betts, we know what kind of a player he is. We've seen the numbers that he's put up. So, yeah, I think, obviously, I don't think he's going to sustain some of these numbers, but I think all year he's going to be top five, top three in most offensive categories.
And a funny thing to add is Mookie Betts will tell you that he's better at bowling than he is baseball. And he's a pretty
There's
damn
video
good
proof.
yeah, and he's a pretty damn good baseball player. And this is a guy who was a Gold Glove right fielder. And where is he playing now? Shortstop. That's how talented he is, and to still continue to put up those numbers, that's why I chose him for NL MVP. I mean, and if he does continue these numbers, he's going to have one heck of a season.
I would have a little bit of pushback, uh, not totally, but Juan Soto may wind up in that conversation by the end of this year, because there's definitely a good chance that by the end of this year, Juan Soto will win the AL MVP with Aaron Judge and Stanton being in the running. So it's just a matter of different league. Right now, if you look at WAR between the two, Mookie Betts is at a 1.5, Juan Soto's at a 0.4. So they're close. Uh, but Mookie Betts, yes, I agree with that overreaction that he's the best player in baseball. Juan Soto, he has shown his worth, and leading the Yankees to being 6-1 on the road so far, that's a tough task.
And the thing with Mookie Betts, if you've watched any Dodger games so far this year, what he's doing the best at is in the first inning, he's always on base. It's just like David said, he's leading the league in runs, and it's easy to see why because he's always on base. You just need someone, and he's fast too. You just need someone to, get some hits right behind him, and he's already home. And a lot of these times, it's happening in the first inning. So to get off early in a lead in a game is really big and crucial because you don't know how your bullpen's going to do, so you need all the runs you can early on.
And
So
in
what
that
you're
lineup, they are never out of any game.
But what you're telling me, Matthew, is that he's the kind of player that Billy Bean likes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but he's worth too much. Yeah, he
I
may
think
get
his salary is more than the A's this year.
yeah, the A's and Tampa Bay probably. I know
Hey,
Tampa Bay
listen,
at one point.
I mean, at least we're not nearly as big of a joke as the A's are
No,
right
no,
now.
no, 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 not at all. No one could scoop to that level. And speaking of,
Maybe the
they
White Sox. I don't know.
They just filed paperwork, if you didn't see, for trademarks for the Sacramento A's and the Sacramento Athletics. That just
Hmm.
came out, and it's kind of a big deal because the fact that they filed that trademark, even though
Hmm.
they're only playing there for 2 years. So, that's something to maybe look a little
Well,
into.
and it's like really sad too. I mean, it would be. I mean, if this was a team like the Rays, it would not be surprising because we do not have a great history. We really don't have a history at all. But the A's are historically one of the great franchises in Major League Baseball. They had a dynasty in the 80s. They have plenty of Hall of Fame players. As I
Mhm.
said, historically they are a great franchise, and to see how far they have fallen from grace is just unbelievable to see.
Yeah, it is sad. I mean, you're talking about the franchise that had Ricky Henderson, the all-time steals leader, the Battle of the Bay, in the World Series against the Giants where they swept them. I mean, this was a franchise that had it all, and now they are the laughing stock of the MLB. So it is kind of sad to see how far they've fallen off. I mean, you could say the same thing with the Raiders. I don't know if Oakland just is such a big curse, but
Well, the one
yeah,
thing the Raiders have going for them is that they have passionate, diehard fans.
yeah.
And
But
I
when
know
we,
I'm going to sound like a hypocrite saying this, but me being a Rays fan, I can speak on this because I have expertise on this. But the A's don't have any fans. All
yeah,
right. And
yeah.
again, I know I'm a Rays fan. Okay, so you're gonna clip that, like people watching this, you're gonna clip that, and you're gonna be like, hey, look at this hypocritical Rays fan, right? But again, buddy, I am speaking from experience here. I'm speaking as an expert here.
Yeah.
At least the Rays can pull in more than 6,000 fans.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, yeah, but uh, we talked about the Raiders here just briefly, and we're going to talk about them more here on the NFL because uh, there was a lot of free agent quarterbacks that were acquired on several teams, but they're going to be kind of labeled as a placeholder on this upcoming season, and I say that because yes, right now they may either be the only quarterback on the roster or they may be the starting quarterback come week 1, but we know that it's not really going to last and there's someone that is going to be behind them that will potentially take over for them. And so I want to talk about who's going to have the biggest impact in regards to that. And I'm going to start here first with what ends up being my team, and that's Wilson with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And keep in mind, I'm talking about placeholder here. Is Russell Wilson going to be a placeholder for the Steelers? Is it going to be Justin Fields that eventually takes over, or will it be some other quarterback the Steelers draft along the way? And that's still a question that I can't even really answer because does Russell Wilson still have it, or is he going to be this mediocre quarterback that we saw in Denver these last couple years? Because if he returns to form of how he was in Seattle, and I'm not saying he was so dominant in Seattle, but Russell Wilson was a pretty consistent quarterback in Seattle, then he's not going to have that placeholder title. And Justin Fields, who the Steelers did not pick up his fifth-year option, who will be a free agent, may not be that quarterback then that will come on. But if Russell Wilson is that quarterback that we've seen in Denver, then yes, he can be an impact on a placeholder, and Russell and Justin Fields eventually take over. But Russell Wilson is kind of a tough one because of that situation there. But I feel like these next ones though aren't going to be as tough. Ed, why don't you talk about who the Vikings placeholder is going to be?
Well, the Vikings picked up the backup quarterback from the San Francisco 49ers last year, Sam Darnold. He's who started his career with the Jets. And Sam Darnold has been proven to have a decent enough arm, but I think we can all agree came out a year to 2 years too early into the draft from USC when he came out. And so he never developed into the type of quarterback that is going to sustain long term and make that big a difference. However, at this point, there's a better to me, there's a better chance of Sam Darnold actually starting the entire season than some of these other teams that have placeholder quarterbacks
Mhm.
because there isn't much behind him. There's unless they go and make the trade that everybody's kind of expecting them to do, which I'm not going to speculate on here, but there is talk out there of them making the trade to go up and get one of those top 4 or 5 quarterbacks that are expected to come out. Sam Darnold's still going to be the starting quarterback until that person is either ready or he falls on his face so bad that you can't not start the rookie quarterback.
Yeah, that very well may happen. I mean, the Vikings have acquired 2 first-round draft picks. Well, if you count their own, they acquired another one. So they have 2 first-round draft picks that they're hoping to then trade up to get that quarterback. But we won't know until the draft. But it sounds like that may be what's going to happen there. Well, this next team holds the number 3 pick, and it's almost certain they will be getting a quarterback. But what quarterback? I don't know. But David, Jacoby Brissett with the Patriots, how do you see that being as a placeholder there?
Well, I think if you ask Gerard Mayo who his starting quarterback is right now, he's going to say Jacoby Brissett. But the key words there are right now, because I guarantee you, Brissett is not going to be the starting quarterback as we head to the season, because the Patriots are going to draft Jaden Daniels, and Jaden Daniels is going to be the future for them. So yeah, I don't see Brissett having an impact, whatsoever. With the third overall pick that the Patriots have, and I mean, obviously, we know Caleb Williams is going to go first, and then I don't know who's going to go second. Maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. But I think we can all see Jaden Daniels falling right into the Patriots' hands. They're going to take him, and he's going to be their quarterback. So
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see the start of something new, something different in New England. Obviously, without having Bill Belichick there. Well, when he was there, we saw what happened with the Cam Newton experiment. It did not work out. So we're going to see a completely different New England Patriots, and we'll see if this works if they do get Jaden Daniels. But I almost called them the Oakland Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. Picked up Gardner Minshew, aka Uncle Rico 2.0, in this free agency. They got him from the Colts, and this one is also kind of similar to the Russell Wilson of the Steelers. Is he really going to be a placeholder, or is this going to be their guy? We saw Aiden O'Connell take over last year for the Raiders, and the team really, they supported him a lot there. And this is going to be a fun kind of matchup between Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew on who's going to be that guy. But just not sure if Gardner Minshew is really going to be that placeholder for the Raiders, or if he's going to be their starting quarterback for the rest of this year and possibly next year. So it is kind of a tough one there for the Raiders. I think it's safe to say they won't draft a quarterback if you do believe anything Antonio Pierce says is starting quarterback. Our guy is on the roster right now. It's either going to be Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. So I'll be interested to see how that plays out the rest of this year and possibly next year. But the number 2 pick in the draft, they also signed a free agent quarterback. And the Washington Commanders picked up Marcus Mariota in free agency. Um, Ed, do you even see this being a placeholder? Is there any shot that he's the starting quarterback come week 1?
I find myself asking the question, do any of these placeholders kind of give the sense of an Alex Smith where you're allowing that number 1 pick to develop at least for a little while instead of trying to push the starter out of the way? Yes, the Alex Smith thing, he was able to be there and play a mentorship with Patrick Mahomes, and keep Patrick Mahomes on the bench developing, waiting for him to be ready. Marcus Mariota, he may be able to mentor what the professionalism of being an NFL quarterback is, but he's not going to be able to mentor what it is to be on the field.
Mm-hmm.
I'm old enough to remember when Marcus Mariota was supposed to revolutionize quarterback play in the NFL, and it just never happened. So, yes, this is a true placeholder. It's just a matter of games before Drake May, who is going to be the second pick, David, uh,
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
uh,
definitely.
winds up on the field. Because we've already, for those that hadn't seen it, Caleb Williams has made his trip to Chicago and had his dinners with the executives. He's kind of resigned himself to the fact that he will be the number one pick and going to Chicago no matter what his camp said.
Yeah.
So, so now, we're looking at Drake May going to Washington. That is going to be what appears to be a mature organization to bring Drake May in and develop him in a maturity standpoint, because we can all see the tools that he has there. So once again, it's a matter of how many games it takes before uh, before he surpasses Mariota to be the starter.
Yeah, the Alex Smith thing, I'm glad you brought that up because that is intriguing. Obviously, the only person on this list that has like the numbers and success Alex Smith has is Russell Wilson. Alex Smith has been to a Super Bowl with the Niners, and yes, he was the guy that was the guy before Patrick Mahomes, and so that's what Ed means by when he brings up that. But there is one guy on this list. If you don't look at numbers, like an Alex Smith had, that could do that, and that's Jacoby Brissett. Out of all these guys, I think Jacoby Brissett is going to have the biggest impact as a placeholder for the next guy to be, because Jacoby Brissett is a seasoned veteran. Yes, he does not have a Super Bowl or anything like that, but the success he had in Cleveland while Deshaun Watson was out really showed that Brissett can be a starting quarterback. He's not going to be an elite starting quarterback, but he could be that guy that is going to at least lead your team to a possible 500 season until your next guy is ready. And I can't think of, honestly, a better quarterback to sit in front of a Jaden Daniels than Jacoby Brissett, because he has that uh, success in the NFL, and he knows what it's like. And I think that he could really mentor someone like Jaden Daniels a lot, how to protect yourself, how to adjust to the NFL, because it is not the same as college football.
Not to mention, this is the same quarterback that was a placeholder between Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. That year that Peyton Manning was out with the neck injury before he was moved over to Denver, there was the hiatus year. Well, Jacoby Brissett was the placeholder and was able to carry the Colts organization on his shoulders for that year before Andrew Luck was then selected first overall the next year.
Yeah. So I think that he has that potential. I really think that that was a great pickup to bring him back to New England where he was before. I mean, that quarterback room of Tom Brady, Jimmy G, and Jacoby Brissett, they were all there at once. So Brissett has been in the same locker room and the same bench as two of the all-time greats with Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. So he's been around in a good way. So I would like to say that Jacoby Brissett would be my guy with the biggest impact as a placeholder. I don't know if you guys agree with that or if you have another name in mind on that list that we talked about.
I mean, to me, I'm just going to go with the obvious choice here, and that's Russell Wilson, because he does have the numbers that these other quarterbacks don't have at all. So simple as that for me.
Yeah.
I I said it before. I'm going to go with Sam Darnold just because I think he's going to be the starter longer than any of these other quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah. Um, but I'm so interested in this draft because, as we know, everything is playing chess. It's all psychological. It's all mental. You get teams that say, they're unsure about like Drake May or something like that, but damn well they would draft him if they had the number 2 pick, probably.
Hmm.
But it's tough to, are they telling the truth? Do you believe them or anything like that? Because you've probably heard every rumor under the sun when it comes to this draft. But I want to ask you guys this. I don't know all the details, so excuse me for that, but did you guys know? I saw an article the other day. Did you guys know that hypothetically the Bears could actually sign Caleb Williams right now? He cannot participate in any offseason anything, but they could sign him right now, even before the draft.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
is there like some kind of loophole here that's been exposed?
No, it's a matter of he's the first. They are the first picking, first team picking in the draft,
Mhm.
so they can sign whoever they want out of the draft pool.
Yeah.
that would just be considered the pick that is there. Because this is a scenario that actually happened
I
with Jadeveon Clowney when he was signed the day before the draft.
mhm.
And then Reggie Bush was the second pick, and Vince Young was the third pick going to the Titans.
Yeah, and actually, I want to say it happened another time before that because I thought you were going to bring this one up, but it was Chris Long. When he got drafted number one, it actually came out several days beforehand that
Mm,
he had been informed and that they were already moving forward with the paperwork to sign him as the number one overall pick, and ended up becoming a big breaking news thing because this was right when I want to say Twitter was like invented. It was hard to really get some of these breaking news scoops as much, but that was also another big one as well. So it has been around for a bit because you're the number one team. If you know you are not making any trades whatsoever, and
mm.
this is your guy, you can sign him.
Just for clarification, Ed, you mentioned Jadeveon Clowney, and then you mentioned Reggie Bush. Did you mean to mention someone else at the number
Yeah,
one pick?
Jadavian Clowney, I think was what 2011
Yeah,
was
he
he?
was 2011, I think. Reggie Bush was before that.
It was for the Titans. I mean for the Texans.
Was it
Because
Mario Williams?
Mario Williams, that's what
There
it
we go.
was.
Yeah, yeah. I get it though. You're pretty close there. I mean, yeah, as far as the
Defensive
player,
end
yeah,
going to the Texans.
Texans, yeah, yeah,
Shocker.
yeah.
When you had J.J. Watt, and then was Connor Barwin a defensive end?
Yeah, I think so.
I know he played defense.
Yeah.
I know
I
that
mean,
part at
and then
least.
they had who was that linebacker they had forever there? Brian Cushing. Yeah.
Cushing, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they had him there too forever.
You
So,
know, right alongside with D'Amico Ryans.
yeah.
We don't. I mean, we don't. It doesn't get talked about a lot, but that Texans defense was stacked. You know,
They knew how to draft defense pretty
yeah.
darn well.
Yeah.
Watt, Cushing,
Yeah.
Ryan's, Barwin, like
Yeah.
those guys were some ballers.
And wide receivers.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. And then they had the other Carr brother as their
Uh-huh.
quarterback.
And
Uh,
can we give our flowers to Gary Kubiak, because do you realize how good of a coach you have to be to make freaking what's his name, Matt Schaub, a
Yeah.
competent quarterback?
Yeah, Matt Schaub, and then Arian Foster, undrafted, and
uh-huh.
then
Mhm,
the success he had in the NFL. Arian Foster was a stud.
mhm,
It's just crazy to see though some of the running backs back then and where they are now. I feel like the running back position is kind of almost like a one and done nowadays. Remember when David Johnson, another undrafted for
mhm.
Arizona Cardinals, was the next big thing? He was the like receiving type of running back. He's nowhere to be found. You got Le'Veon Bell from my Steelers. It
I'm
just seems to be that trend.
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I would not be surprised if somewhere down the road, 10, 20 years from now, the running back position becomes extinct, like gone entirely, because it feels like every year it just becomes less and less important.
Cyclical, man.
Yeah,
It's cyclical.
yeah,
That you're I feel like we're going to get to a point where defensive lines are so much about rushing up field that the inside zone game is going to once again take over the NFL offenses,
Mhm.
and you're going to see a plethora of running backs be the focal point of offenses again.
yeah. We're already seeing it with their contracts. I mean, the running backs are at this rate going to be the least paid offensive player here soon
Mhm.
enough because that's just how it is. I mean, they'd rather spend the money elsewhere. Of course, the quarterback's always going to be the top,
And
but yeah,
like they just, I mean, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Who was the last team to win a Super Bowl, with a running back that had a monster season? I can't think of
Marshall
any.
Falk.
And when was that? Like 20 years ago?
Yeah.
25 years
that
ago?
was yeah. Let's see here. Last team to win a Super Bowl.
I guess okay, I guess the Seahawks with Marshawn Lynch.
I mean,
Well,
they
and
almost
Sean
did with Sean
Alexander.
Alexander against my
Yeah, yeah.
Steelers. That one, yeah, Sean Alexander set the record that year. That was an insane year by him in that Seattle Seahawks offense. But I wouldn't even count Marshawn Lynch really either. I mean, you think of the last, running backs over the last couple years, the top running backs, their numbers were a lot better than Marshawn Lynch. And yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
oh no, I was going to say Lamar Jackson, but they didn't win. Yeah. But well, guys, that's about all we have today. If you could hit that like and subscribe button, we'd really appreciate that. And drop in the comments who you guys predictions are for the Final Four, who's going to be going to the championship, and who's going to win that championship. Who do you have as your big overreaction take on Major League Baseball so far this year? It is still early. Bless you, Ed. And also, who is going to hold as the biggest impacted placeholder in the NFL this next year? So go ahead, drop that in the comments, guys. But appreciate all you guys do. We'll continue to give you guys all that we can as well. But until next time, we are rounding third and headed for home.